Here and now, everything makes sense. The old master Daiki lived in a small bamboo hut, hidden among the willows and whispers of Mount Asahi. His life was simple. He swept the floor at dawn, warmed tea at noon, and watched the leaves fall silently at dusk. He never spoke of the past nor planned for tomorrow. Many thought him wise, though he said he was simply awake. One foggy morning, a young monk named Haru arrived at his door, eyes full of questions and a back burdened with books. He had been searching for answers for a long time, walking valleys, reading sutras, and meditating under ancient trees. But his mind remained full of confusion. "Master," he said, bowing respectfully, "I come seeking meaning. Everything I do feels empty, as if life speaks to me in a language I don't understand. Where can I find clarity?" Daiki watched the young man silently, as if listening to the whisper of the wind more than his words. Finally, he pointed to the ground in front of him and said, "Can you feel where your feet stand?" Haru furrowed his brow, puzzled. He looked at his dusty sandals, then at the master. "Yes, I'm standing in your garden." "Then stay," said Daiki. "Where your feet stand, that is where meaning begins." And without another word, he entered the hut, leaving the door open. Haru didn't fully understand the master's words, but something in his tone invited him to stay. So he untied his bundle of books, left it by the porch, and sat silently on a flat stone in front of the hut. The day passed without words. Only the wind, the birds, and the rustling of leaves under the old man's steps. The next day, Haru awoke to the song of blackbirds. Daiki was already up, sweeping the gravel path with a broom made of dry twigs. He didn't greet him or give instructions. He only offered a second broom and a slight nod. This is how the days went by. Haru swept at dawn, fetched water from the stream, kindled the tea fire, and sometimes simply watched. No questions were asked, no lessons were given. The master seemed always present, and at the same time, absent of all expectations. One day, while preparing the rice, Haru broke the silence. "Master, is there really no higher purpose? No great secret behind all this?" Daiki looked up and watched the steam rising from the pot. Then, calmly, he replied, "And this moment? Isn't it already deep enough?" Haru fell silent. The rice bubbled, the steam rose, the fire crackled, and for a moment he needed no other answer. That night, Haru couldn't sleep. He sat in front of the small rock garden, watching the moon slip through the clouds. He remembered his years of searching, the temples he had visited, the texts he had memorized, the questions that followed him like a persistent shadow. All of it seemed so distant now, as if it had faded into the stillness of the tea, the sound of the broom, the creak of the bamboo. At dawn, he found the master sitting by the stream, gazing at the water. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, Master," Haru said. "Is it possible there's nothing more than this? That everything we seek is already here?" Daiki nodded without moving. "The bamboo doesn't ask if it should be an oak, nor does the water doubt its course. Only man imagines he must be somewhere else for life to have meaning." Haru sat beside him. The water flowed without interruption, clear and simple. For long minutes, neither spoke. Then Daiki broke the silence. "When you stop looking beyond, you will begin to see clearly." And he pointed with his finger to a small wildflower growing at the edge of the stream. "That flower expects nothing, simply blooms, and that is enough." That flower, tiny and unassuming, seemed to hold a truth far greater than all of Haru's books. The young man gazed at it as if seeing for the first time the miracle of something so simple and yet so complete. Days later, as they walked together through the forest, Haru asked, How does one reach that presence? How does one stop searching? Daiki walked barefoot, feeling every twig and stone beneath his feet. Without turning, he replied, "You don't reach it. You are it. You don't stop searching through effort, but through exhaustion." The seeker disappears when he realizes he is already home. They passed by a fallen tree, and Daiki stopped. He placed his palm on the damp bark and smiled. Everything knows what it is. Only humans forget. But even forgetting is part of the path. Haru lowered his gaze, feeling that the master's words were not phrases to remember, but seeds to leave in the heart and let grow on their own. That night, upon returning, instead of opening a book, the young man stayed looking at the glowing embers. For the first time in a long while, he didn't think about his past, nor imagine his future. He simply felt the warmth of the fire and his own breath. For a moment, everything seemed to fit. Everything made sense. As the seasons passed, Haru stopped asking questions. His steps grew slower, his gaze softer. He no longer expected enlightenment or celestial signs. He began to find beauty in small things. The sound of wind through the leaves, the weight of the warm bowl in his hands, the distant call of a frog at night. One afternoon, while gathering firewood, he found Daiki sitting on a rock, gazing at the cloudy sky. Haru sat beside him without a word. After a long silence, the master murmured, "When the present becomes enough, the soul rests." Haru nodded, not with his mind, but with his whole body. He understood without fully understanding, like the taste of water when you are thirsty. The sky began to drizzle. Neither moved. "Here and now," Daiki said, letting a drop slide down his cheek. "Nothing is missing. Nothing is too much. It is only the mind that builds labyrinths." Haru closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he didn't want to be anywhere else, nor did he desire anything else. The sound of rain on the leaves was all he needed, and in that stillness, he felt his search had ended without ever having gone anywhere. Time stopped being measured in days. Haru no longer marked dates or kept track of his progress. He had learned to simply be, to respond to each moment without resistance or hurry. Every task, no matter how small, became a complete act. When washing bowls, he washed his mind too. When sweeping the floor, he swept away expectations. One evening, as the sun dyed the mountains gold, Daiki approached him holding a cherry branch. "Do you see this branch?" the master asked. Haru nodded. "It fell from the tree this morning," Daiki said. "You might say it's dead, but it still breathes beauty." The young man carefully took the branch. It still had open blossoms, fragile but not lifeless. There was a silent peace in its letting go. "That is the present moment," Daiki added. "It doesn't need to remain to be eternal. It only asks to be seen with an open heart." Haru touched the petals with his fingertips. There was no pain in that fall, no fear in its fleetingness. All that was enough, and inside something in him bloomed as well. Over the years, Haru became as silent as Daiki himself. The villagers who came to visit no longer knew who was the master and who was the disciple. Both lived like two stones by the river, not competing, not standing out, simply being part of the landscape. One morning, the sky dawned clear after a long rain. Daiki prepared tea and served it silently. Haru received it with a slight bow. Steam rose, and for a moment, the whole universe seemed to fit inside that bowl. "Master," Haru whispered, "now I understand. There is no meaning I must seek. Meaning is this, being here, being alive, breathing, serving tea, listening to the wind." Daiki smiled tenderly, as if hearing the words of a child who has just learned to walk. "That's right," he replied. "The present moment is a garden without gates. Only those who stop running discover it. Haru looked around. The wooden table, the cups, the song of a robin, the scent of tea, the warmth of the morning light. Nothing was missing. Nothing was extra. Everything was perfect. Not because it was special, but because at last he was fully living it. The years passed gently, like the waters of a river with no hurry. One day, Daiki left, like the wind goes, without announcing his departure. Haru found him sitting beneath the old plum tree, a slight smile on his face, as if he had been listening to some secret melody. There was no ceremony, no mourning, only a deep gratitude. Haru took the master's place, but claimed no title. He kept sweeping the path, fetching water, preparing tea for those who came seeking answers. He offered no theories or promises. He only showed them silence. He only served them a cup of tea. And when someone asked, "Where can I find the meaning of all this?" Haru answered, with the same serene eyes that once welcomed him, "Here, now, where your feet touch the ground." Visitors often left confused, but a few, those who knew how to listen without searching, stayed. And soon they began to smile for no reason, to breathe deeply, to live without anxiety. Because in that small mountain corner, among the rustling bamboo and the scent of tea, the present revealed its deepest secret. Here and now, everything makes sense.